Today's screencast will be dedicated to menus. We'll use three types of menus: a standard menu, context menu, and a contextual action mode. So the first thing we need to have a menu is an actual menu item. So we can create menu by overriding a public boolean on create options menu method. It takes a menu as an argument. Of course, we need to import it first. And then we can add items to it. Now, those items that we add, we have several add methods. We can add either single menu items or submenus. We can add items just by title, so we can add item 1 and say item 2. But that's usually not the best way to do that. So we might prefer the version with a group ID and item ID. So group ID is not that important for us. Item ID is fairly relevant. No ordering, and the last name is titled. So ID item 1, and then we're gonna add ID item 2. So we're gonna have 4 items here. And one submenu, and I'm gonna take this submenu here, and this will be add submenu. It will also have a group ID and an item ID. Submenu. Yeah, so we get a submenu as a result of this call, so we can add items to this element too. We can add, say, item 0 04 0 item sub item. Let's call it sub item. So we can do it like that, and maybe we can add 2 of those. Sub item 2 with a different item ID. And then we can return, say, true. This thing that we return true is fairly important because the return value says whether we should display the menu or not. I'm going to show it. Okay, so as you can see, we have this menu here. And once we click it, we have item 1, 2, ID item, and submenu. And submenu is here. Okay. Now if we return false here, then we won't have this menu. All right. Now, once we've did that, we're going to create a new activity. And this new activity will have the same kind of menu, but created by a layout file, a menu file, an XML. So we're going to create an activity, an empty activity. We're going to call it XML menu. Yeah, that will be it. And I'm going to copy this override because we're going to use the same one. Right, and here we're going to do something slightly different. So we're going to first of all return true, and we're going to return true here too. But here we're going to use a menu coming from resources. So to do that, we need to first create this resource. So we need to add a new resource directory, and that's a menu. Okay, it's not here, it's this here. Okay, so we have a menu, and let's add this menu here. And then we add a menu resource file. I will call it just a menu, or menu 1 maybe. We can use a design to add items if we want to, or we could use code. So we can use add item with ID item 1, Let's see what's necessary here. A title is necessary, so we're gonna call it XML1, and obviously we should put that to string resources, but we can live with that now. Then XML2 and XML3, and we can also add an item which will contain a menu. So this will be a submenu for us. And this is item submenu 1. And this will be ID subitem 1. And it will also have this title thing here. And this title will be called sub1. Menu 1, sub 1, and you know what, we'll also have a sub 2. What's wrong with that? Subitem? Oh, you cannot have a space here. This one, and then we have sub 2 here. Right, so we have those titles, and now what we need to do here is we need to use this menu. So to do that, we need to have get a menu inflator and inflate the menu. So our menu 1, and the other thing, our parameter is the menu we're going to use, and this is the m. Okay, so now we need to open that somehow, and to open that we're gonna use one of these items, and we're specifically gonna use item with ID 1, and that is fairly well. I'll show you how to do that. So now we need to override another function, and this will be public on options item selected, and this is also public boolean as far as I remember, and it takes a menu item as an argument. Okay, so now the typical way to do that would be get item ID. Now there is a crux here. So if we say, in our case it's fairly simple because our item IDs are 1, 2, 3, etc. So we can say just case 1, then start activity, new intent, and our new intent is get application content, this one, and it's XML menu class, and then break. Well, then actually return true, and default we're going to say return true, and add a toast. So we're going to make text that would be get title plus get item ID, so that we get information which item was collected if it was not the one that will move us to the other activity. And here we're gonna have a toast short, and we're gonna show it, of course. What's wrong? Oh, yeah, here. Show. Right. So we have our switch statement. Yeah, it should be probably replaced because we only have one case, but we don't care about it now. Yeah, we want to terminate the previous one and run the new one. So we have our activity, and let's click this thing. So we have ID item 2, and it has ID 2, which is okay. If we click 1, we have item 1, 0. We didn't put any item ID, so if we put no item ID, then we get item ID of 0. And it's the same here, so item ID 2, 0. Then we click submenu, and submenu was clicked, so this function is called first when a menu is opened, but then a menu is opened again, and we can select another item, so we get an information about the second item. So if we have a submenu, then this will be clicked, this function will be invoked multiple times. Yeah, but then we also want to click this thing, and open the new menu, the new activity, and the new activity has a layout defined by the menu layout defined by XML file, and that's basically all when it comes to these standard activities. There are standard menus. There are a few more functions that you might be able to use at some point. So first of all, this activity defines on create options menu. Now this is only called once. So this on create options menu is only called once when the activity is started, and then on subsequent opens it doesn't change. Now if you want to modify something on subsequent open on each display, you should override on prepare options menu. So this thing is what you should do, and then you have on options selected. So that's the same thing. Right. Now that's it when it comes to standard menus. Now the next thing is a context menu, which is also a fairly important thing. Usually it is displayed after a long click on an item. So first, before we start doing anything more significant with that, so we should add some items that we can click. So we have a single hello world text. Maybe we can put another one or two here. So let's put it in the middle. This one and this one. Yeah. So I'm gonna adjust it in so I'm gonna call this one item 1 or maybe text view 1. Or you know what? I'm gonna change that in the code. So let's put these things here. I call this one TV1. It's gonna be a TV1 ID. This is gonna be a TV2 ID, and this one is gonna be a TV3 ID. And this one is to TV2. And I'm gonna set it here to TV3 and this one to TV2. Now I'm gonna use it this way. I could use a linear layout to get pretty much the same, to be honest, but well, I kind of wanted to use this constraint thing. Okay, so we have our 3 elements, and now what we're gonna do is we're gonna set a context menu for each of them, and the context menus will differ. So we're not going to have one context menu, we're going to have context menu for 2 of those, and not for the third one, just so that you see that we can make a menu that is dedicated to some of the items. Now, context menus do differ a little from regular menus. So first of all, that they cannot contain submenus and do not support items, and you need to register them. So to register them, we need to call here register for context menu and get find view by ID. Find view by ID. So we wanna use ID TV1 and TV2, and we're not gonna register TV3. Okay, now context menu is created in a different function. It is created in override. Well, overrides no important name, of course. And public boolean on create context menu, and the argument to that is I think it's also it's yeah, what is it? That's a good question. So let's see. On create context menu, it's a context menu view and a context menu info. So looking up in the sources is usually a good idea if you don't remember a signature, and it's a void. Okay, now our context menu is something that that we will add elements to, and the view is what was clicked. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna do an if view get ID. So if the first item was clicked, which means that it is our ID PV1. So we're gonna add menu add 0, 0 menu 1 and item 1, item 1 and item 2, and otherwise we're gonna add item 3 and item 4, and here we're gonna use 3 yeah, let's say 3 and 4, just to be a bit less confusing. Okay, so let's terminate the previous one, see the new one. So if we click TV3, nothing happens. If we click TV2, we get item 3, item 4. You can click any of them, and TV1 will also item 1, item 2. So as you can see, it works this way. Now, if we want to add a handler to that, we need to again override public void on context item selected, and this one takes menu item I, and it's a boolean, and we return true if we handled the thing and false if we didn't. And we can pretty much do the same as we did here, so we can just switch on the item ID, especially if our item IDs are unique among items. If not, then it's a little more complex, but you can usually work it this way. Yeah, we don't need to return here. So again, if we click item 1, then we go to a new class, and if we click any, well, item 3, just so to change it. Otherwise, we just put a toast to show what was opened. Yeah, so a new, let's open again. So nothing happens here. Here, once we click this one, we get a toast. For this one, we get a toast. For this one, we get a toast. And for this one, we move to another screen. And the screen has these items. Right. And that's it when it comes to context menus for today. Now the final element we're going to use is a contextual action mode. Now contextual action mode is slightly different, and maybe let's just show it. Probably will be the easiest. Now I'm gonna add a button to that, to the bottom of the screen somewhere, maybe between this and this and the bottom of the screen. So we're gonna click a button here, and this button is gonna call a function, and this function that will be called, I'm gonna call it public open action mode view v public void. So now I'm gonna add the handler to the button here, and I'll be using this element. So we're gonna use Android on click and open action mode. And to do that, we're gonna just call start action mode. Now we need to have a callback here. I'm just gonna create a new callback, and I'll get a few functions here. So don't care much about destroying, being destroyed here. These are for cleanup. If you need anything to do during the cleanup, then you override this one. Now I'm gonna care about on create mostly. So I'm gonna add some items. Menu add 0, 0 to item 1, item 3, and item 5, and maybe a few more. item 7, item 9, and item 11 with different IDs. And then on action click, we're just gonna run a toast. And return true because we did handle it. And that's not I, now it's item. Yeah, we wanna terminate the previous one. And once we click the button, nothing happens. And that's because, yeah, so there's something wrong, obviously. Action what callback, oh yeah. So we need to start action. And once we start the action mode, we get items here on the menu bar. As you see, we only have two items, item 1 and item 3, so the first two. The rest of them are hidden here. So 3, 5, 11, have item 11, we can click this one or any other. And that's how we start the action mode, and if we click this one, the action mode is being destroyed, and we can go back to these earlier ones. Okay. So that's it for today. What I want you to remember, one more thing I want you to remember is checkable mode. So menu item M1, checkable. This is a slight modification. So if we make the item checkable, see what happens. You get a checkbox here. Now the trick with the checkbox is that once you click it, nothing happens. So you click it, the element gets removed, the element gets clicked, so on option item selected is run, but the checkbox is not selected. Now you need to handle this checkbox programmatically. So you need to handle whether it's checked or not in your code. Okay. So short summary now. Three types of menus that we're talking about are standard menus, these standard menus, and you can create it either by adding items in the code, which might be more convenient to if you're more programmatically inclined, or you can use a menu file, which might be more easier to address for designers, for example. It doesn't matter in the end, you just get a menu, which looks pretty much the same. Now, you can handle each item, and clicking any item in the menu will trigger the same function. So you need to switch or do an if or somehow distinguish between which item was actually clicked. And then you can apply any function that you want. So for example, move to another activity or show a toast or do whatever, perform some computation, run a web query, whatever you want. So that's the standard menu. Context menu gets shown usually after a long click. You can of course invoke it manually. Context menus are tied to a single element. So a single view needs to be registered to support context menu. If you don't register, then it won't be there. Then a context menu is created on each time it is being shown. So this onCreate context menu function is called each time, contrary to onCreate options menu. This one is onCreate once. So onCreate context is created each time. On context item selected works pretty much the same as on options item selected, so there's no trick here. Just make sure that your IDs are unique in the whole activity. And then on creation action mode is probably the most complex of those. So you need to have override this action mode callback interface. The class or implement the interface. Let's see, what is it? I think it's an interface. Yeah, it's an interface. So you need to implement this interface, and you can do it inline if it's fairly simple. If it's more complex, you should probably extract it to a separate function. And then on creation, you just add the items, and the items that do not fit into the screen are just put into the standard menu here. And your menu can be checkable, but you need to manage the checkbox yourself. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and good luck.